Fear is a liar. It whispers in your ear, paralyzes your dreams, and convinces you that survival is better than success. But what if I told you that fear isn't something to manage? It's something to destroy. Not tomorrow, not someday, but now. Because the life you want, it's hiding behind the very thing you're afraid to face. And today, we break that barrier forever. Fear is a shapeshifter and changes forms, hesitation, self-doubt, procrastination, anxiety, but its root is always the same, the unknown. Fear thrives in uncertainty. It breeds where the mind is cloudy and the heart is undecided. But there's one force that fear cannot stand against, one weapon so potent it shatters even the deepest insecurities: definiteness of purpose. When a person moves through life without a clear goal, they wander. They become vulnerable to every gust of doubt, every whisper of failure, every opinion of the world around them. Without a destination, every road is a threat, every challenge is a warning, every choice feels like a risk. This is the breeding ground of fear, indecision, uncertainty, confusion. When a person locks eyes with a goal so vividly imagined that it becomes more real than their current reality, fear has no foothold. There is a reason why the most fearless people in history have always had a mission. Not just a wish, not a vague dream, but a purpose. Something that commanded their attention with such intensity that their risks became irrelevant. When your mind is wrapped tightly around a goal, your energy flows in one direction. Distractions lose their power. Critics fade into background noise. Obstacles shrink. And most importantly, fear, real or imagined, becomes irrelevant. Definiteness of purpose transforms the mind. It organizes thoughts, fuels discipline, and awakens a level of courage that no external force can give. When you know exactly what you want, fear becomes something to use, not something to run from. It becomes a signal, not a stop sign. The presence of fear no longer paralyzes, it focuses. It sharpens your senses. It reminds you that you're alive, that you're on the edge of growth, that you're in pursuit of something worth facing discomfort for. Without this inner clarity, life becomes a buffet of regrets. Opportunities pass by unnoticed or are rejected out of fear of making the wrong choice. You question your worth, your timing, your ability. You overthink, hesitate, and retreat. You live by default, not by design. But when you choose definiteness, when you say, this is what I will do, and I will do it no matter what, the fog clears. It doesn't mean the path becomes easy, but it becomes visible, and visibility kills fear. There is immense power in writing your purpose down, not because the ink is magical, but because it forces you to confront what you truly want. Most people are afraid to even do that, afraid to commit, afraid to declare something with finality. They fear failure, yes, but more than that, they fear clarity, because clarity removes the excuses. Once you say, this is it, there is no more hiding behind maybe, you are now responsible. That terrifies many people, but for those who embrace it, it liberates. Purpose is like a torch. In the dark tunnels of adversity, it lights your way. It doesn't remove the danger, but it gives you something to aim for, something to fight for. And in that fight, fear loses its dominance and even impact on you. A person consumed with purpose doesn't ask, what if I fail? They ask, what must I do to succeed? The question changes. The focus shifts. The fear is still there, perhaps lurking in the background, but it no longer holds the wheel. Most fear isn't rooted in actual danger. It's rooted in the unknown, in the questions you haven't answered yet, in the meaning you haven't defined. When you declare purpose, you begin to answer those questions with action. Every step forward becomes an act of defiance against fear. Each decision you make in alignment with your purpose builds mental muscle. You start to trust yourself. You start to see progress. And progress is the proof your mind needs to silence doubt. People often look at those who move with confidence and think they must not feel fear, but that's not the truth. The truth is, they feel it and walk anyway, because the vision pulling them forward is greater than the hesitation holding them back. They have decided that the cost of not pursuing their purpose is far more frightening than the risks involved in chasing it. The decision is born from clarity. This isn't just about ambition, it's about survival. A purposeless life slowly erodes your spirit. It leaves you vulnerable to the fears and expectations of others. You begin to adopt beliefs that aren't even yours. You inherit limits you never question. You live reactively, not creatively. But when you commit to a purpose, when you claim it with conviction, your life begins to organize itself around that aim. You become magnetic to solutions, resources, people, and opportunities that align with your intention. That's not mysticism, it's focus. It's the result of a directed mind. There is no such thing as living a fearless life. Fear is part of the human condition, but you can live a brave life. And bravery is born from purpose. When you know where you're going, you're willing to endure more. You develop resilience, not because you enjoy pain, but because the vision makes it worth it. You become less concerned with opinions, because you're not trying to please everyone. You're trying to fulfill something greater, something meaningful, something that you chose. In this clarity, your energy is not scattered. You stop jumping from idea to idea, from project to project, hoping something will feel right. You make it right by committing. Even if the past shifts later, the initial commitment is what activates your power. Without it, you're just drifting. And drifting is where fear thrives. You cannot destroy fear by avoiding it. You destroy it by overwhelming it with purpose. By getting so clear, so specific, so emotionally invested in your goal that anything not aligned with it becomes background noise. That includes fear. The mind cannot hold a dominant fear and a dominant purpose at the same time. One will eventually override the other. The question is, which one will you feed? You feed your purpose with vision, with clarity, with repetition, with belief, with action. You remind yourself of it daily, you speak it aloud, you see it when you close your eyes, and you move toward it even when you're scared, especially when you're scared. Because the more you walk, the smaller fear becomes. Not because it has changed, but because you have, in that transformation, fear loses its place. It may knock, but it no longer enters uninvited. It may whisper, but it doesn't dictate. Because you've chosen something bigger, something brighter, something definite. Fear is a parasite that feeds on uncertainty. It whispers worst-case scenarios and exaggerates danger until a person becomes frozen, trapped in a prison built entirely in their own mind. And yet, there is a force within every individual that can dissolve fear completely, not suppress it, not ignore it, destroy it. That force is faith. Faith is not about religion. It is not blind optimism or passive hope. Faith is the inner certainty that you are capable, that your vision is real, and that the universe, when met with conviction, bends to your will. Fear and faith are opposites, and they cannot coexist. One always dominates the other. If fear is in control, it's because faith has gone silent. But when faith is alive, truly alive, fear is cast out like a shadow when the lights are turned on. The mind is a battleground. Fear enters through thoughts, subtle doubts, questions, imagined failures, and it takes root when we entertain those thoughts without challenge. But faith is the shield that stops them. Faith is the mental discipline to say, no matter what I see right now, I believe in what I know is possible. It's a conscious decision to focus not on circumstances, but on outcomes, not on barriers, but on breakthroughs. Everything begins in the mind. Every invention, every achievement, every breakthrough was once just an idea, an invisible thought. Those who achieve greatness are not exempt from fear. They simply chose to believe in their vision more than they believed in their doubts. They rehearsed victory. They trained their minds to expect success. They fed their faith daily until it became the dominant force. When a person allows fear to guide their actions, they shrink. They second guess. They play small. They avoid risk not because they lack ability, but because they lack certainty. That certainty isn't found outside, it's created inside. It's created when a person looks at their dream and says, "This is mine. I don't know how yet, but I will find the way." That declaration is faith, and with it, fear begins to weaken. People often wait for proof. It's the surest way to delay progress. Proof doesn't come first. Faith does. The belief comes before the result. The trust comes before the evidence. That is the essence of power, the ability to move forward before the conditions are perfect, the courage to take action before the fear is gone. And that courage only comes from belief. Belief is a habit. It must be practiced. It is not something you feel once and then forget. It must be built like a muscle, and like any muscle, it grows with repetition. Every time you choose belief over doubt, you strengthen that muscle. Every time you take one step forward when fear tells you to stop, you affirm to your subconscious mind that you are in control, that your destiny is greater than your fear. This isn't about delusion, it's about decision. It's about deciding that fear will not write your story, that your life will not be shaped by limitations but by possibilities. When faith becomes your foundation, your thoughts shift. You stop asking, "What if it doesn't work?" and you begin asking, "What if it does?" That simple change in question transforms everything. It rewires the brain to look for solutions, to expect opportunities, to move forward with energy and conviction. There is a voice inside that knows your potential, but it's often drowned out by noise, the opinions of others, the weight of past failures, the pressure to conform. Faith quiets that noise. It brings you back to center. It reminds you that no one else can see your vision as clearly as you can, and that's okay. It's not their job to believe, it's yours. It's your job to nurture that belief until it becomes unshakable, until your inner conviction is louder than any external doubt. Fear grows in silence. It grows when dreams are hidden and potential is suppressed. But faith grows when it is spoken aloud, when it is declared with confidence, when it is written, read, repeated, and acted upon. The more you speak life into your dreams, the more real they become. The more you affirm your vision, the more momentum you build, and momentum is the antidote to hesitation. There will always be uncertainty. That is part of the journey. But uncertainty is not the enemy. Paralysis is. The goal is not to eliminate all risk, but to move anyway, to walk through the unknown with eyes open, with a heart full of belief, with a mind anchored in trust. When you do that, you start to see fear differently, not as a warning to retreat, but as a sign you're heading in the right direction. Growth lives on the other side of discomfort. People often ask, "How do I get rid of fear?" The answer is not found in hiding, it's found in building belief so strong that fear no longer holds weight. You do that by feeding your mind with the right ideas. You surround yourself with people who speak life into your vision. You fill your days with thoughts of success. You visualize your future not as a possibility, but as a certainty. You live in the energy of achievement even before it's visible. Your reality follows your belief. The world mirrors your expectations. If you expect failure, you hesitate, you hold back, and you sabotage your progress. But when you expect success, you show up differently. You speak with more clarity. You move with more purpose. You attract different energies. Faith is not just internal, it's visible, it's felt. It transforms how you show up, and that transformation affects everything. When you choose faith, you're not ignoring obstacles. You're rising above them. You're saying, "This may be hard, but I'm harder. This may take time, but I'm committed." Faith doesn't guarantee ease. It guarantees persistence. It guarantees resilience. It guarantees that you will not give up just because the path is difficult. And that kind of persistence always finds a way. No one else can build your faith for you. It is your responsibility to guard your mind, to protect your thoughts, to direct your focus. The world will offer plenty of reasons to doubt. You must choose to believe anyway. To believe when it's quiet, to believe when it's dark, to believe when no one else sees what you see, because it's in those moments that your power is formed. You don't need all the answers. You don't need a perfect plan. You just need to believe enough to take the next step, and then the next. With each step, fear fades. With each step, your belief deepens. With each step, you prove to yourself that you are stronger than the voice that says you can't. Belief is not a feeling. It's a decision to trust the process, a decision to move in spite of fear. Fear often appears most powerful just before action is taken. It builds itself up in the mind, feeding on hesitation, magnifying risks, stretching the possibilities of failure far beyond reality. But there is a truth that stands firm against it. Fear cannot survive direct confrontation. The moment you take action, real, deliberate action, fear begins to lose its grip. It cannot remain where progress is being made. It may linger for a moment, but it dissolves in the presence of motion. There is something transformative about doing the thing you dread. The mind has a tendency to inflate what it hasn't experienced. It imagines the worst, builds monsters out of shadows. But when you step into the arena, when you take that first real move toward what you fear, you begin to see it for what it is, just a barrier made of thoughts. You realize the anticipation was worse than the event, the imagined pain greater than reality, the what-ifs louder than the actual consequence. Courage isn't a trait reserved for the few. It's a habit available to all. And like any habit, it is built through repetition. Each time you face what frightens you, you teach your mind that fear. You rewire your nervous system to associate action with strength, not paralysis. And over time, the actions that once terrified you become natural. What used to seem impossible becomes routine. That's how fear is defeated. Not all at once, but piece by piece through movement. Preceptation is a teacher. It provides immediate feedback. It reveals what's real and what's imagined. Fear thrives in inaction because in that silence, the mind fills in the blanks with doubt. But when you act, you force your mind to deal with reality. You replace theory with evidence. You stop guessing what might happen and start learning what actually happens. This clarity is powerful. It removes ambiguity. And ambiguity is where fear hides best. No one escapes fear by thinking about how to be brave. No amount of positive thought alone can overcome the inertia of fear. Action is the catalyst. You cannot think your way into confidence. You earn it through doing. Even the smallest steps count. A phone call made, a conversation started, a decision finally executed. These all build internal strength. Confidence is not granted, it is built in the trenches of repeated forward motion. It's important to understand that fear is not a sign to stop. It's often a signal to start. That nervous tension, that sense of resistance, it means you're touching something important. It means you're standing on the edge of growth. Most people turn away at that edge. They mistake fear for a warning, but in truth, it's often an invitation to level up, to expand, to rise into the person they're meant to become. And the only way to answer that invitation is with action. Every time you act in the face of fear, you gain a kind of internal proof. You start building a track record with yourself. You collect moments of evidence that you can handle discomfort, that you can survive uncertainty, that you are more powerful than the fear that once ruled you. This internal track record becomes a foundation. The next time fear rises, you remember your past victories. You say, I've been here before, and I moved anyway. Without action, fear festers. It grows in the gaps between your current self and your potential. It builds bridges of anxiety between where you are and where you could be. The only way to collapse those bridges is to walk them. Step by step, breath by breath. You may tremble at first. That's okay. Movement isn't about perfection, it's about direction. Forward, no matter how slow, no matter how shaky. There is no magic moment when fear disappears. Waiting for that moment is how years are lost. Waiting to feel ready is how dreams fade. The readiness you seek is not found before the leap, it's found midair. It's found in the doing, in the building of courage through sweat and risk. You build a new identity through motion. You begin to see yourself differently, not as someone who hides, but as someone who acts. That identity shift changes everything. Those who live boldly are not fearless. And they simply have a habit of moving. They've trained themselves to act first and sort it out later. They've learned that clarity comes through engagement, not contemplation. They've replaced the question, what if I fail, with what will I miss if I don't try? And with every action taken, they become less afraid, not because the world changes, but because they change. Procrastination is a disguised form of fear. It often shows up dressed as rationality, waiting for the perfect time, gathering more information, preparing endlessly. But beneath that surface is often a fear of failure, a fear of judgment, a fear of not being good enough. Action exposes these fears. It brings them into the light. And in that light, they lose their power. You do not conquer fear through avoidance. You conquer it by walking into its territory and claiming space. You make a decision that your mission is more important than your emotion, that your goals are more important than your doubts, that the cost of inaction is too high to pay. And so you move, not because you feel like it, but because your future demands it. There's something deeply empowering about doing what scares you, not just once, but repeatedly. You begin to develop a kind of internal steel, a quiet confidence that isn't loud or boastful, but unshakable. You carry yourself differently. You trust your instincts more. You stop needing external validation because you've earned your own respect, and that respect is priceless. Momentum is the unsung hero in the fight against fear. I'll believe in politics. Cancer is the same as your home. What you put in place is the same as your family. You want to be on a football team or jazz band? Once you start, things get easier. The mind begins to cooperate. The energy builds. What failure, when met with action, becomes a gift. You learn, you adapt, you grow, you prove to yourself that setbacks are not the end, only data. You stop fearing failure because you know you can handle it. And once you remove the fear of failure, you become dangerous to any limitation. You become someone who does not back down, someone who faces forward always. You were not born timid. Fear is not your natural state. It was learned. What has been learned can be unlearned through repetition, through deliberate exposure, through action taken, even when the voice in your head says, not yet. You silence that voice, not with arguments, but with movement. The world does not reward those who wait. It rewards those who move, those who show up, those who press on. Fear may knock, but action answers the door. And when it does, fear finds no room to stay. Fear is often fueled by illusion. It creates narratives in the mind that seem real, stories of rejection, failure, judgment, and loss. But these stories have power only when they are believed without question. The way to dismantle fear at its core is to confront those illusions with truth. Not temporary comfort, not denial, but truth. Raw, direct, unfiltered. Truth exposes fear for what it is, a liar dressed in emotion. When you strip away the dramatics, fear is almost always a projection. It's rarely rooted in the present. It's rooted in the past, memories of pain, embarrassment, disappointment, or in the future, imagining outcomes that haven't happened yet and may never happen at all. The mind, in its attempt to protect, becomes a creator of fiction, and that fiction becomes a prison. But when truth enters, it opens the door. Truth has a stabilizing effect that grounds you. It returns your focus to what is, not what might be. It reveals what's controllable and what isn't. And in that clarity, fear loses its edge. Fear thrives in distortion. When you think you're not good enough, when you believe you'll be laughed at, when you assume the worst will happen. But truth says you are still standing. You have endured. You are capable. And even if failure comes, it will not define you. is a moment that comes when you stop running from fear and begin to interrogate it. You ask, what exactly am I afraid of? And more importantly, is that fear based on truth or on assumption? Often, the moment you ask that question honestly, you start to unravel the fear itself, because fear hates being examined. It prefers to operate in shadows, unchallenged. The second you bring it into the light of scrutiny, it begins to weaken. Honesty with yourself is the first step. That means confronting the real reason you haven't taken the leap. The real reason you've been hesitating. It's not always about risk. Sometimes it's about pride, about ego, about old wounds, about needing approval from people who don't even matter. The truth can be uncomfortable, but it's never destructive. What destroys you is the avoidance of truth, pretending, justifying, blaming. Facing truth takes strength, but in that strength you reclaim your power. The truth is, most of the limits we live by were not chosen, they were inherited. We absorbed them from the environment, from the people around us, from early failures we misunderstood. We didn't examine them. We didn't ask if they were real, and so they became walls. But those walls are paper thin once they're questioned. Once you speak the truth that says, just because I've been afraid doesn't mean I'm incapable, you begin to tear them down. Clarity is a weapon. The clearer you are about who you are, what you want, and why it matters, the less fear can distract you. You stop getting caught up in the fog of opinions. You stop trying to meet standards that aren't yours. You stop shrinking to fit places you've outgrown. Clarity makes you bold, not recklessly, but precisely. You move with direction. You speak with purpose. And fear becomes just another variable, not a force. Fear often tells you that the truth is too heavy to handle, that if you look too closely, you'll find something shameful or broken. But the opposite is true. When you look honestly, you don't find weakness, you find evidence of strength. You see how far you've come. You recognize the lies you've believed, and in recognizing them, you take away their power. You stop operating from a story that no longer serves you. There is a truth you must tell yourself if you want to rise above fear. No one is coming to save you. No one is going to. Undue courage. No one is going to walk your path for you. That may sound harsh, but it is liberating. Because once you accept that, you stop waiting. You stop hoping that the right timing, the right person, the right permission will appear. You stop outsourcing your bravery. You start creating it. There is a truth in your potential that fear doesn't want you to see. It is the truth that your ideas matter, that your voice matters, that your effort has value, that your dream isn't random. It was given to you for a reason. When you embrace that truth, fear becomes smaller, because now you're not just doing something for yourself, you're honoring something bigger, something necessary, something meant to be expressed through you.